Welcome to Operations and Supply Chain University. I'm Jerry Wright. This is Ops University Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt Certification course, lesson number 9, Value Stream Mapping, part 2. So here's a value stream mapping example. At first, based on learning to see, value stream maps were hand-drawn, usually in pencil. This is one that I remember doing in about 2008. So again, hand-drawn in pencil. But the reality is that gets to be kind of tough. Finding bead sheets of paper and getting the pencils out is tough. So people started moving quickly to Post-it notes. So this is one that was done around 2010, done with Post-it notes on butcher paper. Another example, and this was done with photographs. I thought this was a cool one. This was for the Iceman product that was at my company. They did with photos and then little data boxes of Post-it notes on a big sheet of paper. So again, there's a lot of different ways you could do it. Some people like to go for the Visio version or a computerized version. I personally don't recommend this, at least not in the current state, because remember, value stream mapping is a learning exercise to get everybody on the same page. But I like to show this example for a reason. In the current state, you can see there's little bursts in the current state. Each one of those little red bursts indicates a Kaizen event or a Lean Six Sigma project that needs to be executed to get to the future state. And again, this is fracture boots, current state, and fracture boots, future state. Those are those walking boots you see that people wear for repairing their ankles or high ankle sprains, things like that. So again, this is a Visio version. Again, I don't recommend necessarily doing it in Visio or any other software. Doing something simple like we said here or here just to get started. And we'll look at another easy way to do it in a minute. So here's an example value stream mapping workshop. This is the Acme VSM team. Again, a great group of folks I got a chance to work with. You can see I'm in there in the red shirt. I thought this was a fantastic example, and I wanted to share it with you because it really shows how you can easily do value stream mapping in a short period of time, even for an entire business. So let's dig into this one. So this is a value stream mapping event. The value stream mapping process helps identify the roadmap for Lean and Kaizen. And at Acme, as we'll call this company, it's an opportunity to see the flow and look at it. So where are we today and what's the problem? Well, the current conditions are well known, but they're not familiar to the company there. We need to look at what we can do to help improve the process. So we had the process owners, Mac and Burke. We had the process experts, Grace, Gentry, Joey, and Brian. We had some good process outsiders, Ken, John, and Jeff, and then myself and Luke were facilitating this event. So I started off with value stream mapping training, very similar to what we're doing today. And there was the whole group. We did this production training on the factory floor, so very real. Now, John Vaughn, who was one of the members of the team there, brought this data sheet with him from a previous company he'd worked at and said, hey, let's use these. It'll make the VSM process much quicker. And I said, sounds great, John, let's do it. And this is what that VSM data sheet looked like. If you notice, you can see there's a step number, a date and a time, a little box with incoming materials. We want to know what's the work in process at that step. And then there's all those different bits of data, cycle time, touch time, lead time, setup time, shift duration. Everything's right there to collect and make it easy. So we just took the sheets with us. We took the pages, cut them in half, and then went out and just started collecting data. When we came back together, we started putting those data sheets up on a huge wall that had butcher paper or that white paper all over it. And it took us a while to finish the value stream maps. I think about 4 to 5 hours because we were in teams of 2 or 3. And then we put everything together. We had a lot of WIP to count, add things up. So it's definitely a fun exercise. Now I want to show you an example of one value stream. If you notice in this value stream, you can see the sheets there. So the little sheets across there, there's the little triangle eyes with the inventory. And boy, was there a lot of inventory in this example. In the upper left, you can see that's the movement when we had to move through the facility. That's how we got the distance traveled and where things moved through the facility. And in this particular example, you can see there's little kind of squiggly lines around every idea that we said, hey, we could do these improvements in these areas as we looked at this value stream. Now, one of the things I like to point out on the far right, you can see cycle time was about 4.5 minutes for the operator, and there was 3 hours of machine time. We had a lead time of roughly 26 days, and the total work in process was over 430,000 eaches. Distance traveled about a quarter of a mile or 1,323 feet. So pretty incredible process. And if you notice, we have our little, square wave down there. We have the cycle time on the top and the lead time on the bottom in this example. But again, a very detailed process, and we got a good value stream representation in about 4 to 5 hours worth of work. And so we could decide, what do we want to do next? There were also 3 other value streams. I won't cover these in any detail, but the other teams did the same thing. At the end, we kind of had this summary. So we had lead time, WIP, and distance traveled. And our goal was to try to cut that in half or better. So you can see the current state and then the target state. The worst example we had was the one I had on the bottom, value stream number 4, a long lead time and a lot of work in process. So one of the things we did at the outset of this particular event was, okay, what are all the things we want to do? And then let's look at this PACE diagram. So PACE is prioritize, act upon, consider, or eliminate. So things with a high impact that are fairly easy to do. So that's going to be that upper left quadrant. Those are the ones we want to focus on. Things that have a low impact and are really difficult to do, we're probably not going to do those. We're going to eliminate those. So this was an example of what we put together on this. Now, we went even further in this example, and we came up with a lean roadmap. So for the upcoming year, we wanted to focus at Acme on a lot of lean transformation. We also had continuous learning, benchmarking, and sustainability, all kinds of things we wanted to work on, as well as culture and values. This lean roadmap is also included in your Lean Six Sigma Green Belt Toolkit for Ops University. So you have a template if you'd like to use this, but this is a nice planning exercise to kind of outline what are we going to work on. So again, a great event. I'd like to report though that back on this, they were actually able to exceed their targets across the board. In roughly 6 to 9 months, they had actually beat everything. They'd cut their WIP in half. They cut their lead time in half, and they just did a fantastic job at Acme. And I was proud to be a part of getting that kicked off and working with them on setup production and setting up Kanban and things like that. So very rewarding, great experience. Let's look at another value stream workshop. So here's another Acme, we'll call them, and a great group of people that we worked on improving a machine delivery process. Now you can see their value stream map is behind at the back. Let's look at that in a little more detail. So here's the value stream map number 2. We have the metrics on the upper right. We'll blow those up in a second, but essentially there's a lot of sheets there. If you notice, it goes all the way across to A, then A goes down here, then there's a B and a C. We kind of had to work with the board because there were a lot of steps. Now here's the data. Distance traveled, because it was between multiple buildings, almost 3 miles. Work in process, 164 units. Lead time, roughly 10 to 20 days. Cycle time, 7 to 9 days of working time. Number of operators, roughly 45. And then the number of forms was 26. Again, our goal was to try to cut all those in half. We had to relay out the whole process. You can see the teams working on it. We had different layouts and different designs and all the key actions we had to take. Here's an example of a PACE diagram. This is different than the one we saw earlier. This is a little more sophisticated. You can see then high impact, easy things to do. That's the priority. Stuff that's high impact, but maybe a little harder, that's the act upon. And then we'll consider some of the ones in that lower quadrant. And then we're not going to probably do items 9 or 14. They're just too much time and not enough benefit. Now, for this particular example number 2, their lead time, as we said, we wanted to try to cut that. The distance traveled, same thing. Again, the goal was to try to really bring these down. The good news is they were actually able to do this across the board. Took about 4 months, 3 to 4 months, but they actually exceeded all of their targets. Now, this was the feedback from the team that they gave that day. They said, wow, we learned to see waste and we understand balance. It was more easy to see things at that 10,000 foot level. Analyzing types of waste, distance, WIP, and inventory was really good. There was lots of passion, lots of teamwork. We learned more about the company. We looked at removing boundaries and silos, good ideas for improvement in a big picture format, and it was a more concentrated approach. It was more effective use of time. Now, I said, hey guys, what do you think of this process? Well, thumbs up. Everybody was pretty excited about it. And again, here's that template. This is your ops university template to use for value stream mapping. So this is a VSM data collection sheet, very similar to the one that we introduced 17, 18 years ago, but it really helps you get that data and build your value stream map quickly. Now, here's one from one of my students. I think they had a lot of fun with this. I figured this would be fun to share. Here we go. Here's our little VSM sheets with the nice little tracing. This was for a practice of doing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But again, you can see this is something you could apply to almost anything. Now, here's your VSM assignment. I want you to organize and plan a value stream mapping workshop, even if you're doing it all by yourself. Gather the data at each step of your project's value stream, or each process step if you cannot do the entire value stream. Create your value stream map from your VSM templates like we saw here. Use these templates. And then add up the total lead time, the total cycle time, the total distance traveled, and any other key metrics you feel are important. Maybe you want to measure WIP or inventory. Doesn't matter, whatever's key. And then look at what is the ratio of cycle time over lead time. That is usually a good estimate of value added to non-value added. Now, do you want to learn more about value stream mapping in greater detail? Here's a couple of choices. My good friends Karen Martin and Mike Osterling wrote a book called Value Stream Mapping. It's still a very popular book. You can get it on Amazon and other booksellers. Value Stream Mapping, How to Visualize Work and Align Leadership for Organizational Transformation. Great book, very popular, really like it. Also, another friend of mine, Drew Locker, wrote Value Stream Mapping for Lean Development. So more of an administrative side for looking at how to streamline your time to market. Drew has a great book on value stream mapping for product development. Either one of these is a great read. Think about what makes sense for you. Now that's it for value stream mapping part 2. Thank you.